In this video, we're going to look at some updates that have been added to the S2400, as well as some hints and tips to try with your unit. Let's start with the updates. Firstly, you can play sounds backwards on the S2400. To do this, assign a sound to a track, hit loop/slice, and that track's A button to bring up the wave editor. Press F7 and the sample will be reversed. You can still slice, edit and loop even when the sample is backwards. Plus, in multi-mode, you can reverse slices within a piece of audio and leave other slices untouched. Gate mode. From a track's settings menu, you can activate the gated option. The sample will now play when that track's pad is held down, and it will stop when you release it. This is particularly useful for loops or longer pieces of audio. Fine pitch adjustment. Hit pitch and then shift plus one of the A buttons to bring up the pitch settings for a track, and from here you can now set a precise pitch for a sample in semitones and cents, so repitching with pinpoint accuracy is now possible. A quick note, if your pitch resolution is set to either Classic 16 or Classic 32 for a track, then you will get a classic pitch option instead of fine. Track transpose. From any track settings menu, you can now change the bass pitch of a sample. The value you set will be added to any pitch shifting you do on the machine in pitch mode, or to any pitch value that comes via MIDI. Parameter overwrite. You can now overwrite a level, pitch, or filter performance into your pattern. Firstly, level. Press level to enter level fader mode and hit record and run stop. You can hear the hi-hat pattern I've already programmed, and it has no difference in level on any of the steps. I'll hit A to activate parameter record overwrite for level, and now if I hold down the pad for the hi-hat track and change the level with the slider, these new values are recorded into the pattern and they overwrite the previous values. Once you're done, hit A again to deactivate level record overwrite. Next, pitch. Press pitch to enter pitch fader mode and hit record and run stop. Again, hit A to activate parameter record overwrite, this time for pitch. Hold down the pad and change the values with the fader. These new values will overwrite the previous values. Once you're done, hit A again to deactivate the pitch record overwrite. Finally, from either pitch or level, you can overwrite the filter. Start recording and press B on the track you're working with, and whilst holding down the pad, ride the filter. Once you're done, hit B again to deactivate the filter record overwrite. So this is very useful if you want to record the notes in first and then a parameter performance on a second pass. Midi Monitor. At the bottom of the sync menu, there is now an option for MIDI monitoring. When the S2400 receives MIDI information, this is displayed in real time in the MIDI monitor, so you can see what's coming in. Resample. This is an exciting one. You can take any sample from the SD card of your S2400 and run it back through the analog input filters and sample it at 26 kHz and 12-bit internally on the machine without having to get out any cables to patch the audio out and back in again. To do this, hit Shift and File to load the file menu. Navigate to Browse Files and choose a sample. Or you can also access Resample from any track's settings menu if you prefer. Make sure the trim is turned all the way up on the rear of your unit, that's counterclockwise by the way, and press F4. You can choose whether the resample will be saved to a project, the same folder as the original, or another folder. Below that are specific options that relate to your choice, as well as an option to rename the sample. By default, the file will be given the same name followed by _resample. Below this is an option to change the pitch of the sample as it's resampled, and in fact there is a quick option called pitch like 33 at 45, which simulates a 33 RPM record being played fast at 45 RPM by pitching the sample up by 5.37 semitones as it's resampled. If you then pitch it back down after sampling using the classic audio engine and classic 16 or classic 32 pitch resolution, you get that classic vintage sampled sound. Live time signature change. If you hit time signature whilst playing back, you can now edit the time signature on the fly. Likewise, you can hit pattern length and change the pattern length on the fly. Simplified save process. If you have recorded a sample into your S2400 using the sample function, the save options are now simplified into a neat and tidy single save menu. This is also mirrored in the live looper if you choose to save a live loop as a sample, and in the loop slice menu if you save a slice as a sample. Hints and tips. In this section we'll look at some functional and some creative ideas to try with your unit. Firstly, your internal flash drive contains kits from various beta testers and artists, but you don't have to load whole kits. You can browse those sounds just like you can on your SD card, so you can make hybrid kits from the flash drive. Fader lock. Pressing Shift plus F8 whilst in level, pitch, envelope, loop slice, multi-mode or main mixer mode will lock the faders. Very handy if you don't want to accidentally change something you spent time setting up. Holding Shift whilst moving a fader will give the opposite lock behavior to the one you've set. So if you've locked your faders, Shift and a fader will allow you to change the parameter, and conversely if the faders aren't locked, holding Shift and moving the slider means that that parameter doesn't change even though the physical fader does. Menu speed daemon. Within a menu or folder, hit Shift and the right arrows to jump to the bottom, or Shift and the left arrows to jump to the top. Likewise, if you're deep into the menus or folders, Shift and back will move back one level at a time, and back alone will jump right the way to the top. Choke sequence. As covered in earlier videos, if two tracks share the same channel and alt channel, a second sound will choke the first. You can have fun with this by setting all 32 of your tracks to the same channel so that you get a linear sequence where only one sound is heard at a given moment, and with faster rhythmic values you can get some interesting wavetable-esque effects. Sequenced filter fun. Something cool to try is bringing in a sample of a sustained note, whereupon you sequence a bandpass filter with high resonance rhythmically. Round robins. If you want variations of a sound without having to assign different samples to different tracks, which eats up your track count, then load in a longer sample containing 8 variations of a sound, in this case a snare. And if the samples are spaced evenly, the S2400 will automatically slice them for you in multi-mode loop slice. You can now record in these 8 variations of a sound, and it's contained within one track. Using this same technique, you can also bring in a chromatic recording of an instrument and chop out the authentic pitches you want in multi-mode loop slice instead of repitching one sample up and down, which obviously changes the tonal quality and speed of the sample. Now, of course, you may want that, but if you don't, then this is the workaround. Lofi HiFi. Using the resample method, you can make a classic version of a sample and still keep the HiFi version of it on your SD card. You can then assign 2 different fidelity recordings to 2 different tracks and switch between them in your song as a performance effect. And so concludes the Isla S2400 video manual for now. As updates come, more videos may come, but for the time being, thank you very much for watching and enjoy your S2400.